Virtuality. And as Elizabeth said, we have two speakers in this panel. So the first is Professor Elif Kavakci, who is an assistant professor of fashion studies at the University of Arizona and also a fashion designer. And Elif's paper is entitled The Legacy of the Kavakci's Headscarf, Revisited in the Age of Social Media. So Elif, if you want to share your screen, take the virtual floor. Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night to all the participants, family members, and friends joining from around the world. This symposium has been just fascinating. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Ben, for organizing it. The legendary French linguist and semiotician Roland Barthes has argued that clothes have both semiotic and linguistic representation. In his book, The Fashion System, Barthes makes a distinction between the real garment and the represented garment. He argues that aside from the physical article of clothing, the garments we wear express ideas. This expression may consist of a variety of variables such as what the garment is, who's wearing it, how it's worn, where it's worn, or how the garment is perceived by its audience, and so on and so forth. Perhaps the garment that is being worn has cultural, religious, political variables that can be added into the computation. Or a garment may be coded with memory. For example, it could be valuable because it was a garment that was part of a social and political protest. Thus, as can be seen and as it has been argued by many fashion theorists, there's more to an article of clothing than the eye can see. According to Barthes, how a garment is represented and how it's perceived depends on a plethora of factors that come together to form a complex system, which he refers to as the fashion system. Barthes' idea of a complex system intersects with a parallel argument made by cultural theorist, media philosopher Matthew Fuller. In his book, Media Ecologies, Materialist Energies in Art and Technoculture, Fuller takes on a complex systems perspective similar to Barthes and argues that objects are about processes and should be interpreted as, quote, elements in a composition, unquote. Furthermore, Fuller presents the idea of a, quote, standard object, unquote, becoming a part of a process or taking on a more valuable meaning based on its ecology. In linking the ideas of Barthes and Fuller, Barthes' definition of a real garment is what Fuller would refer to as a standard object. On that same note, what Barthes terms as the represented garment, the article of clothing with its representative value, is relevant to Fuller's argument about a standard object evolving into an, quote, element in a composition, unquote. By extension, this paper examines a religious headscarf by applying Barthesian and Fullerian perspectives in order to understand how and why a specific Instagram photograph of the headscarf went viral and ended up on local breaking news, and ultimately on global news. The paper attempts to decode the representative meanings of the represented garment and its transmission from a standard object to a dynamic process that resulted in its being widely shared. More interestingly, this paper serves as a case study of my personal attempts at designing a highly coded headscarf aimed at rechanneling activism of 1999 as viral activism of 2015. This case study is also personal to me because it involves my two older sisters, academics and politicians, who have both dedicated their lives to make changes in the world. I'm not a lawmaker or a politician, but by designing their clothes, I have tried to support their work and their cause. The headscarf. In February of 2015, my middle sister, Ravza Kavakci, received a formal invitation to run for candidacy for the position of member of Turkish parliament. This meant that she would be campaigning for the majority leading party, AK Party, also known as the Justice and Development Party, as a representative from the 1st District of Istanbul. This was both an exciting and a bittersweet time for our family, as we rejoiced in the news. It was bittersweet because my eldest sister, Merve, had made history on May 2, 1999, becoming the first Turkish headscarved woman to be elected as a member of parliament. Yet due to socio-political reasons, she also became the only MP prevented from officially taking her oath of office that day, never being permitted to serve her seat. Her painstaking ordeal became a historical case referred to as the Kavakci affair. Overnight, she was removed from Turkish citizenship and her life was in danger for, quote, challenging the state, unquote. All because she's a Muslim woman who wears a headscarf. She became a global name associated with the headscarf ban, and she became known as the Rosa Parks of Turkey. The reason she had wanted to become an MP was because she wanted to have a say in the lawmaking process and make every effort towards the removal of the headscarf ban so that religious discrimination would come to an end. The headscarf ban in Turkey was introduced in 1981 and prevented the wearing of religious headscarves in the public sphere. This meant that female university students wearing headscarves were prevented from entering university buildings, and if they dared to enter the premises, they would be arrested and taken into custody. If a headscarved woman had an emergency and needed to go to a public hospital, she would be told to remove her headscarf or she would be denied health care. The ban was still in effect when my eldest sister was elected as MP and attended the oath of office ceremony. Due to limited space, this paper will not provide in-depth details of her struggle, but will focus on the legacy of the clothes she wore and how they became a semiotic representation of her cause. My sister's outfit, what Barthes would refer to as the real garment, consisted of basic professional wear, a navy skirt suit accessorized with a red, white, and navy blue color-blocked silk headscarf. Immediately after she was ousted in the parliament and was prevented from taking her oath of office, the clothes she wore, particularly her headscarf, became a representation of the headscarf ban in Turkey. On May 2, 1999, as my sister sat in her seat, watching the brouhaha taking place in the parliament, the photographers who snapped various shots of her contributed to the circulation of the significance of her garment. Hence, images of Merve were displayed all over the news. The historical event having taken place in the age of the World Wide Web, journalists permeated the images and the videos of the incident to be shared with a larger audience, gaining international attention pre-YouTube age. After the emergence of YouTube and Vimeo, several versions of the video have been posted by individuals who connected with her story. The photograph of Merve Kavakci in the parliament became such a widely known image that whenever the topic of the headscarf ban came up in a discussion, people could easily associate the ban with that single image. In fact, as a representation of her activism, the headscarf she wore gained its own fame, becoming what Barthes would refer to as the represented garment. Consequently, now that my middle sister Ravza had the chance of swearing in as the second Kavakci to enter the Turkish parliament, I was ecstatic about the idea, knowing that the whole country would tune in to the oath of office ceremony, just as they did on May 2, 1999. I knew that this would be a great opportunity to create a design with semiotic value. After 16 years, this would be the first time in history that headscarved members of parliament would be able to take their oath of office freely since the ban was lifted in late 2014. Thus, it would again be an event of historical importance. As a fashion designer and active social media user, I decided to design a replica, a more updated contemporary version of the same outfit that I had designed for Merve. What if this time the headscarf that had become a symbol of the ban entered back into the parliament, rewriting the narrative of what it represents, and was carried to the oath of office by another Kavakci who was now taking up the torch, so to speak. The technicality of the design process was a little bit of planning and some luck. The skirt suit Merve wore had a minimalistic style to it. It was a grayish navy color, and her headscarf was the most important article in her outfit. I designed a more modern skirt suit with a similar color for my middle sister Ravza. To this day, I have not put the two outfits next to each other to see if the colors are exactly alike. But since a fashion designer can be creative and take chances, it was mostly luck that made the two designs seem extremely similar. When designing Ravza's skirt suit, I added a small crisscross detail in the front of the top to make it more stylish. Yet the production of the headscarf was not as easy of a process as the outfit was. The headscarf Merve wore was a square silk scarf that was machine printed silk. Ravza preferred to wear a rectangular scarf. Thus, I collaborated with Mülkesin Kara, a silk scarf painter with over 20 years of experience based out of Istanbul. We critically planned the design and hand painting process. The colors and the print had to be exactly the same, and despite the fact the two scarves are of different geometrical shapes, the print had to be situated and had to frame the face in the same exact positions so that when Ravza walked up to take her oath of office, the audience would immediately recognize the same print and link the two images together. In the early afternoon of June 23, 2015, before we got in the car to drive to the parliament to attend the swearing-in ceremony, I decided to snap a photograph of my sister outside the apartment complex. As she stood next to Dad, I took an amateur photograph with my iPhone and jumped in the car to post it on the way to the parliament. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I logged onto my Instagram, barely edited the photograph, copied and pasted the bilingual caption I had written from the night before, and clicked next to post it on my account. I then clicked the option to share the post on both my Facebook and Twitter accounts. Before I could close my social media account on my phone, before I could close my social media account, my phone started ringing. My Instagram post had gone viral in less than a minute. The clock showed 1 p.m. The parliament would not open for session until 3 p.m. and Ravza was scheduled to take her oath of office approximately around 6:45 p.m. Yet the image of what she was wearing had already gone viral. My mission was accomplished. Watching my sister Ravza swearing in was one of the most emotional days of my life. When her name was called, there was a standing ovation in the parliament. She had taken her oath of office and had also carried the headscarf that prevented her sister from serving her seat in 99 with honor. Kavakci's headscarf now had its own legacy. In this section, I'd like to analyze why and how the image I posted on Instagram went viral, in addition to touching on its strengths. As can be seen from the previous sections, the object in the image was a non-standard object because it was a highly coded headscarf. Thus, if I had not posted a photograph of the headscarf, making its debut on social media, up until my sister Ravza walked up to the podium to take her oath, the connection between her headscarf and Merve Kavakci's former headscarf would not have been made till the last minute. By providing a preview to the coded design through posting its photograph and making it available to a larger audience, I had created the dynamic process to be put into execution. From a Fullerian perspective of a media ecology, I had acted as the original host to the image and put it in an open space for people, followers, supporters, and mainstream media to pick up on its importance and message. I used social, political, cultural, and historical networks that were already in place as part of my viral structures. In addition, my social media performance and what Van Dyke refers to as, quote, the culture of digital connectivity, unquote, were part of the reasons why this image went viral. Moreover, I had not just posted the image with a hashtag, it was accompanied by a long caption that described the importance of the day. From a Bartesian perspective, the combination of the image of the represented garment and the text expressing its meaning created a system, a network, or an ecology larger than the object itself. The photograph of the scarf represents what Barthes refers to as image clothing. The caption that accompanied the photograph is what Barthes refers to as written clothing. Moreover, Barthes emphasizes that the two components have to be present in order for clothing to have representative value. He states that quote, without language, pictures are too slippery and vague in the meanings they produce, unquote. The narrative attached to the image is what people could connect with, and this was one of the strengths that made the image go viral. In conclusion, social media is such a shaky ground that it's often difficult to predict and analyze in terms of what might go viral and what might not. Yet when the theory and the practice come together, one can get a glimpse of what might take place. As my case study shows, in incidences where viral structures can be tapped into to revisit different social or political issues, in a world where physical socialness has been replaced by virtual socialness, in a world where activism has been replaced by viral activism, making an image reach a larger audience is possible. In my example, the representation, presentation, and circulation of the coded garment and coded photograph connected to different audiences at multi-facets and social platforms. Without the viral structures and viral networks, this would not have been possible. While I may not have been able to track down its authorized and unauthorized spread, it served its purpose far greater than I would have imagined. Now, when I Google Merve Kavakci, the images are no longer of her alone, but both images of Ravza and Merve pop up on my results page. The most significant of them all is the one with the images of both of them in the parliament cropped next to each other with 1999 and 2015 captioned accordingly. These photographs provide a visual historical diary of two women who fought along with millions of other women for the same cause over a 16-year period. When I look at the two images next to each other, I'm reminded of a beautiful quote from Anne Klein. Clothes aren't going to change the world. The women who wear them will. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Elif. That was yeah, as the comments suggest, that was fascinating, very, very powerful, and it was a really interesting articulation, I think, of kind of the enduring role and influence of semiotics and Barth, even in today's society. So that was really interesting. Thank you. I'm sure we'll speak more about it at the end anyway. So thank you very much. The next presentation. The next paper is by Dr. Maria Skivko. Maria is an associate professor at the Department of Social Systems and Law at the Samara University in Russia. And her paper is entitled From Digital to Physical Protection, Hiding the True Face with Facial Mask. Maria, if you're
hello.
Happy to take the floor. Hiya. Yeah, hi. Can do.
Good. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm just thinking, as a small intro for my presentation, how many definitions masks have and how many definitions for head coverings. I even couldn't, I didn't attend all the presentations, but now I'm thinking like, wow, there is so many options to research and investigate. So I'm like, I would like to start. As far as I'm talking about face mask, I would like to start from one, short expression that I found in social media from one friend of mine. The lady wrote that, now it's the time when we start to recognize people from only their upper face, as far as we have to wear something for the lower face.
Sorry, Maria, sorry to cut you off. Do you want to share your screen or?
Yes, in a
sorry.
second.
Oh,
yes.
sorry. Okay, yes. I'll let you do it. Sorry.
I just want to explain that for this symposium, I was exactly inspired by this idea that we have to change our ways of communication, personal interactions, and start to, create maybe some strategies how to recognize people if the face is, not as we expect before. So now I will share my screen and you will see my slides.
I didn't mean to rush you there. Sorry about that.
Here. I think it should work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I need to do the full screen and this. Okay. Not the first time, but always is a question how it works. So I would like to share a few of my ideas regarding facial masks and especially this transition from digital to physical protection. I'm a sociologist. I'm interested in people, in interpersonal interactions, and definitely all changes and challenges that we face, especially, in the last year. It provokes me as a researcher and a sociologist to consider and reflect, what's going on with our communication if we have such changes that we, didn't experience before, or at least we have to deal with it. So I wanted to talk about this idea of protection and using the digital technologies. So I also give some classes at Samara University in Russia, and one of my courses is about trend searching. I do research about fashion phenomena and about trends. So I, explain to my students that we can even all the information that we have today, especially we can define certain tendencies that have potential to be developed. And well, what I want to emphasize today is those in yellow color, and especially digitization, technologies, and people. Well, this is a slide from my presentation from the course, but I just wanted to use it as a form. When we talk about digitization, last year demonstrated that we can work online, that we can study online, communicate, have parties. Someone even had weddings online. So plenty of options in the digital world. And we use those opportunities, and we use technologies for that, different apps, different programs to make our life easier. So we go in deeper and deeper in this digital culture, and we know already something about digital etiquette, digital communication, and those rules that works when we go in the online space. But still we live in the physical space, and we are people who wants to, well, talk sometimes to each other, and not only using mobile phones or Zoom, for example, or any kind of application. Yeah, we need real contacts to people. So that's why people hear this slide in the middle. And my idea is that we, these individualities, just personal interest, still more, let's say, more significant as digital cultures and those opportunities in the digital world. So I defined here 3 trends that, well, pop up a few years ago, recently, some time ago, but still have potential to be developed. And regarding the interpersonal communication, they work in the following dimension. Well, from digitization, we take all those technologies and applications that we use for communication. And here I also wrote digital fashion. Fashion mask is still, for me, can be considered at least as an accessory, fashion accessory. And people already, well, demonstrated that they can be creative by using different kind of masks. And digital fashion is also developing in the direction of presenting models in the digital world, 3D fitting rooms. Yes, I have here the slide. So we use technologies almost 100%. We are surrounded with all possible gadgets, and we also develop those digital fashion items and can create our wardrobe, even staying in the same room in the online space. But what became fashionable is those kind of digital masks. Well, I'm not super Instagram blogger, but I tried today some filters. So my idea is that those augmented reality filters, virtual digital mask, you can call it in different ways, they appeared, well, a few years ago in one popular application, mostly, well, to have fun, to entertain, as a funny additional instrument. And this instrument actually was quite successful because bloggers start to use it to attract attention, to encourage the audience, and fashion brands start to use it. If you go to Instagram, you always see the name of creator, designer of those kind of filters or masks. So in 2019, it became possible for everyone to create those kind of funny, or not maybe sometimes funny, filters. My idea here that, well, we use it, yes, for attracting attention, different kind of ways to present your image in a digital space. It's about beautifying right? You can use filters to make your face more attractive, nicer, to follow certain standards probably. And well, it became popular also in particular in Instagram, among those Instagram fashion bloggers, to make their content nicer and more, well, fashionable as well. And it's also about adding some emotions to the visual image. When I apply to my picture, I want certain reaction from the audience. And it's also about making my face maybe nicer, maybe funny, maybe express some idea, some emotions. But mainly it's about self-expression. I want to create my identity. I want to specify that I'm special. I want to show you this in my digital space. So it became a fashionable, I would say, instrument in the digital world. In one dimension, we can also say that it became also possible to communicate with those kind of filters, but 2020, well, changed the paradigm. We faced this obligation to wear physical face mask, medicine mask. And it's not about entertaining, definitely. It's to protect, firstly, and to set the distance, to physically define those distance from others. Well, no fun at all, but it's also about hiding emotions. It's about, well, not showing something that I do not want to show. It's regulation of facial expressions. No one can see what I really hide there. So my question is how it influences communication if we cannot really see the face of each other. So what I wanted to say regarding emotions, one of most popular, most demandable soft skill at the job market in the last years, in particular in business, well, in any kind of trainings, it's emotional intelligence. How to read emotions, how to perceive, understand, and manage my own emotions, how to control and how to understand someone with whom I'm talking, how to read, because from the conversation we take 50 till 80%, not from words, not from tone of voice, but from body language, from gesture and from mimics. So we have to really see the face of each other to understand. This picture is, well, from the series, but that was its expression of 6 universally recognizable facial expressions, something that it's supposed that people all over the world understand from each other. Different kind of feelings and emotions, variations, it's more complicated, but those are supposed to be universal. And imagine that when we have to wear a face mask, what happened? Do we really see this emotion? Are we able to define, is it sadness, or is it fear, or is it anger, or is it happiness? Kind of, well, I would say complicated. We see only eyes and, well, it's not everything what we need. So mask becomes a fashion accessory, or maybe not fashion, but just accessories that protect us, but it's also accessories that blocks our ability to express emotions and to perceive facial expressions, because we see only part. And what's interesting that the upper face that we see usually is responsible for negative emotions, and the lower face for, well, for happiness, for positive emotions, smiling as an example, right? And we do not see this smile. And well, some researchers suppose that we can enhance the the perception of negative emotion and diminish the perception of positive emotions. So from here, I wanted just to develop two ideas. What are the provocations and what are the possibilities for interpersonal communication when we wear facial masks? So starting from provocations, or let's say challenges, or maybe problems, some kind of negative effects from wearing facial masks. Firstly, it's hard to define, is it frowning or smiling? We do not see exactly the face, we do not recognize those emotions. And sometimes it leads to, well, easily misunderstanding. Then it's about digital culture and what I call smartphone and the hand culture, especially for younger generations. They even walk at the street with a smartphone in the hand and just staring in at the screen easily. So I see here the danger to just lose those skills to communicate, to start a conversation, like let's say talking to a stranger in the street, asking the direction. So there is a big, I think, problem how to not lose this skill just to talk, as far as we all, well, use more and more digital instruments and, well, working from home, Zooming and so on. Another problem is different cultural context. As far as we can, well, we can see in the eyes of each other. So in some cultures is not possible, is impolite, for example. Some people just cannot really stare. So this obligation to wear facial mask moves or motivates to maybe create something to define or redefine some cultural norms and context to well, lead the communication and have a effective, efficient communication process. Another story, also very interesting for me, the results of plastic surgery. Well, I read one article about botulinum toxin that some people use as an injection to not have wrinkles at the forehead. So basically it's something that blocks the muscles, so the forehead is completely not moving. Well, probably it's some beauty instrument for some people, but if imagine that the lower face is covered, that the forehead also does not move, what we can see on the eyes that express all those emotions and express main idea. And in general, any kind of beauty procedures change the face muscles. So face expressions also changing. And well, it somehow becomes complicated to understand emotions. But I see here also some good points, possibilities, or maybe advantages of those kind of new way of communication, in a way that we will use more eye contact, just not even at the online communication as well. Maybe we will create new cultural code of beautiness in contrary with those beauty procedures and plastic surgery. There is also expression social smile, when we smile just due to some polite reason. But if no one can see our smile, that is covered with a face mask, so there is no need for this kind of face expressions. So we will not use it. And the question, what's going to happen with some kind of face muscles, and what's going to happen, what we will create to express all those ideas, for example, how to express those politeness, then we will need to use some compensatory actions to say more, maybe to use body language, gestures, and in general, if you cannot express something with a face, you have to say it, right? And sometimes it's hard or complicated to say something. And I also was thinking that whether will we be using a facial mask for those kind of complicated truths that we sometimes have to say, or will we go back to just open faces, let's say, to reconsider emotions and face expressions. So now I'm thinking that from face-to-face communication, we are coming to mask-to-mask communication, and actually digital world, I'm expecting personally that they will react to this kind of missing points and the interpersonal communication, creating maybe another app, another filters to compensate those missing expressions of the lower face. And I think that, well, we will be also going with this problem deep in the digital world, because we will still use it a lot, and we'll be using more and more in a way that, well, now I'm with the question, what is the difference between digital face expression and the real face expression? But now I'm exactly at this point of consideration and research that I probably would like to discuss, maybe that what's going to happen with this communication using digital instruments. And for now, I'm done. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks very much, Maria. That was really interesting. It was again a really interesting kind of interpretation of potential ramifications and consequences of us having to wear masks, obviously on a daily basis. So what we might do then is, there were a couple of comments in the chat, and I just open the floor to some questions for both presenters. If anyone has any questions, then obviously you can type in the chat or raise your hand. I'll just go back through the chat and Elif, yeah, Fiona's comment, again, as we've said, a fascinating example of dress as strategy for political activism at its finest. Again, yeah, so that was an incredible piece of research, really, and again, like I said, just a really excellent application of semiotics and codes and Barth's kind of theory, really. So, I mean, it reminded me actually of a paper that I read when I was doing my PhD by Sandiki and Gur, which on I think it was called Veiling and Style. I think it was, which was a really interesting paper too, from my approach to consumer research, which is again kind of consumers' behavior and the practices that they employ to kind of in some cases, I think, as the authors say, destigmatize a particular material product, or decommodify certain things, or various things like that. So it reminded me a little bit of that. So what kind of did you obviously you've heard of that paper before, but
I did. There's so many on. I think it's called Reorienting the Veil, or I mean, they've Sandikci, they have written a lot of papers. Just my experience, it was fun, and I just thought, let me try, let me give it a try. And I think at that time, I don't know, right now I have about 11,000 followers, but at that time I didn't have such a large following, but I just thought, why don't I give it a try and see if people can put the two images together and get the same kind of emotion and feeling. And there were lots of people just texting and crying. It was just such an emotional thing that touched a lot of women's lives. And so it was just great. my sister's image in the parliament. And, you know, like when we talk about Rosa Parks and the segregation and how that image of her sitting on the bus is carved in our brains. It's an international image, you know, no matter who you go up to and say, you know, Rosa Parks on the bus, and they'll be like, yes, I know that image. So this became an image that just kind of represented the band. So I thought rewriting history with another image with the same headscarf might be a fun thing to do, but I didn't know. And so it was a lot of luck, and some a great experience came out of it.
Yeah, it was excellent. Really, really fascinating. Thank you for sharing it. I'm just going to go back through the comments just so, because there's been quite a few, so I don't want to miss
I think
any.
there was a comment about someone shared a link about the ban in France.
Oh, yes.
And the Turkish system is very similar to, it's based out of the French system of laïcité, where church and state are separate. And so it was the practice, and the ban was in effect for a very long time. But with the new government and President Erdogan's leadership, there has been a lot of changes and a lot more democracy.
Okay.
But I think this is, it looks like it's going to continue in France. We'll keep seeing the ban on face coverings and head coverings, and I think in Belgium. And my sisters are more knowledgeable about this because I'm just on the fashion side, but it, you know, it's something personal to me.
Of course. And that link is obviously,
yes,
Sylvia's posted that link as well, if anyone wants to visit that as well. Just moving down the comments now, I think we go back into Maria's presentation. Fiona says, not quite what is being discussed here, but makes me think about how we haven't tackled the exclusions of mask wearing. So for people with hearing impairment, for instance, and that's something that I was thinking too, Maria, during your presentation, was that obviously the face is you know, such an emotive part of the body. It's one of the primary, you know, ways we communicate with each other, even if it's not verbally. It's like you've mentioned, it through expressions and how we kind of mobilize affect and emotion to which is obviously central to human connection. So if you put a mask over half of that, then, you know, again, it's like I said, it's a really interesting interpretation of possible consequences. So I mean, what is the effect for everyday communication, human connection, relationships, things like that? So I mean, you raised some really interesting questions.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone has answered those questions in the chat. I'll have a quick also the issue, yeah, those with facial disfigurement have experienced great liberation. Teresa says she has seen some see-through masks. One is on Kickstarter, I think it's called Ruby. Lip reading. Yeah, I mean, again, these are obviously, given the nature of the pandemic and how masks are so vital to you know, to health, and then obviously this is the other side of the equation. One of my students has a sibling with hearing difficulties, so she created a mask with a see-through area for the lips. Sorry, there's just a lot of comments. Do other chairs just read down through the comments? Is that how it's done? Does anyone have any questions for Maria or for Elif?
Do you mind if I jump in? I can't raise my hand because I'm the host, so being a bit pushy here, jumping in. That's okay.
No, go for it, Elizabeth. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got two questions, one for each of you, if that's okay. Elif, it was absolutely fascinating, so powerful. I actually felt quite emotional to see your sisters together at a podium. It was wonderful. Yeah. And I just wanted, you know, to comment and possibly ask you to reflect a little bit more about how you found a positive side to social media and to communicating globally in that way, when we hear so much of what's taken away from us. And I think that what you show is a positive side to it. So I wonder if you could reflect on that. I'll just ask Maria a question. Maria, I really was struck by the slide that you had where you had the mask covering the faces and all we could see were the eyes. And I think, where do we go from here? Well, we need the mask for a while probably, and possibly every time now wherever we're ill, we need to wear the mask. So what do we need to do then? I know that's your research and you're in the middle of it, but what's your gut feeling about how we remain human and communicate, but also look after one another by wearing the mask? So yeah, I've got 2 questions there, if that's okay, Paddy.
Yeah, of course.
All right, or go ahead. Yes, please go ahead. Okay. Yes, since she said the first question, I thought I'll go. Yes, so I do think social media is positive, more positive than negative. Emotionally and psychologically, we do struggle a lot with the negative aspects of social media. But I do think it also gives us a voice that we didn't have before. You know, it was like in the 90s, late 90s with my first sister and her experience and the images spreading. You needed the media aspect. You needed the journalists there taking the photos, whereas with social media now we can do it on our own. And so I think it's just wonderful that we have a say and a voice. And now we're, as citizens, we can be journalists and we can report and we can comment on something. And a lot of times, you know, with women in politics, men in politics too, but I don't know why women get more negative criticism about everything from what they wear to, you know, the lipstick or the shoes, the heels they're wearing. They get criticized and they get a lot of negative comments on social media. And at least it gives them a voice to kind of say, wait a minute, you know, this is not right. On my end as a user, it's been mostly positive. At least, you know, like I said, it gave us a voice.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank you. Very powerful. Very powerful. Thank you.
Maria?
Yes. I just want to say that I think last year demonstrated that it's a start of changes in many areas. In industries, in environmental protection, let's say, and as well in fashion industry and fashion standards, I would say, and also in the communication. So we have to experience those changes that we cannot really control, and then we have to create something new to understand each other, to to read these emotions, even if it's hard. So I believe that we will start to create new codes. And I'm sure that regarding the fashion standards, it will be also changing a lot due to those face masks. Well, it was, I think, already more or less a year ago when the sales of mascara and eyebrows care went really up, because, well, what you can use
Yeah.
to beautify, right? And the sales of lipstick went completely down. Well, you do not need it really. So this is also changing, well, how we apply makeup, let's say. Well, not for all the cases right now. We can use whatever we want, but anyway, for going outside, for communication in the physical space, it already changing. Do we need makeup to really just go to the store to buy something? If I can just cover my head and my face with a mask and well, don't wear glasses with a mask, it's complicated, especially in winter that we have now. But I think this is the way for those changes, and it's somehow sounds strange that it starts from, well, masks to change the ways of how we communicate, but I believe that it will be maybe several steps to create the way how we understand. And already those, it was here in the chat, these transparent masks that, that we can read some emotions. I'm not sure that this is really the way, but, or a screen, to use a screen. So industry is already productive and apply all innovations.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you, Paddy.
No worries. Yeah, that's interesting too. This idea of like we will adapt and create new codes, new kind of forms of communication, which is quite interesting as well. Just a couple of comments. Philip says that mask wearing may constitute a new form of disability, but one that is obviously universal. So it may help us all to understand disablement and the adjustments that it entails. So again, kind of to your point, Maria, the kind of what kind of adjustments we will need to make in light of that. Fiona, a colleague, appreciates the ease of popping on a mask to do the school run if she hasn't had the chance to brush her teeth. Right. Don't name them, Fiona. Don't name them. Name and shame them. That's interesting. Yeah, so I mean, again, there are a few more comments coming in that we can, that you know, everyone can have a look at. But I think for both of those papers, obviously slightly different, but so interesting in terms of how both of them are progressing existing theory and applying it to real world situations, which is ultimately the basis of really great research, I think, kind of reinterpreting and redefining existing ideas and theories. So well done to both presenters. I thought it was really excellent. And thank you for letting me chair the session. Does anyone have any final questions for Elif or Maria? No? Okay.
Thank you. That was a great way, such a positive way, such an interesting future looking way. And I think Ben and I were thinking about that, putting this as the final panel. And great job, Paddy, chairing. Thank you.